What are all the values of a that make the inequality the square root of a is greater than a squared true? So we have four options. A is 0, a is bigger than 1, a is between 0 and 1, and a has to be 1. So let's test them out to see which one works. Okay, so if a is 0, we would write out the square root of 0 is greater than 0 squared. So let's do the math for each of these. Okay, the square root of 0 is 0. 0 squared is 0. Is 0 greater than 0? No, because 0 is 0. So A is not an option. So A is bigger than 1 is an option. So let's test out 4. All right, if we're going to square root things, let's use nice numbers like 4. So let's test out B to see if that will work. So we'll let A equal 4 because 4 is bigger than 1, and I can take the square root of it nicely. So the square root of 4 is going to be greater than 4 squared. The square root of 4 is 2. 4 squared is 16. Is 2 greater than 16? No. So B is not an option. So C is asking, all right, well, let's pick a number between 0 and 1. So like a half or a quarter or something like that. So let's do this. Since I used 4 because of square roots, let's do 1/4. So let's try that out. This square root of 1 over 4 has to be greater than 1 over 4 squared. When you take the square root of a fraction, you take the square root of the numerator and the denominator. So the square root of 1 is 1 and the square root of 4 is 2. That's got to be greater than 1/4 times 1/4. So 1 times 1 is 1, and 4 times 4 is 16. Now, if you know your fractions, you know you're a half. 1 over 16 is a very small number, like 0.0 something. Okay, so is a half greater than 0.0 something? Yes. So my answer is going to be C. Now, if you were paranoid and you wanted to test out D, let's quick test out D. The square root of 1 is greater than 1 squared. The square root of 1 is 1. 1 squared is 1. Is 1 greater than 1? No. So D didn't work anyway. So the answer is going to be C. Fun stuff. Which expression can be simplified to the form something times root 3 when x is an integer? So what we have to do is we have to take turns simplifying all of these square roots and see which one gives us blah, 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 square root of 3. So I like to make factor trees for these. We'll do one at a time. So we'll try 48. Let's make a factor tree out of 48. So 48 can be, what, 3 and 16. 16 can be 4 and 4. 4 can be 2. 4 can be 2. So let's see what happens when we take the square root of 48. So if I take the square root of 48, I can rewrite that out as 2 times 2 times 2 times 2. 2 times 3, which means you can take out one pair of 2's and another pair of 2's, and oh, no way, leave a 3 behind. So when you bring out one pair of 2's, another pair of 2's, and leave the square root of 3 behind, you get 4 times the square root of 3, which is something times the square root of 3. So right off the bat, A is going to be the correct answer. So if you're wondering, like, okay, well, what does an incorrect answer look like? Let's just take a look at one. Let's just pick square root of 51. Okay, just for funsies. All right, to see what the wrong one looks like. I can pull a 3 out of that, and when I do that, I'm left with 17, which is also prime. So if you try to take the square root of 51, you're just going to do 3 times 17, which means you're not going to circle anything. Nothing's going to come out. You're still left with the square root of 51. So the square root of 51 is not going to look like something root 3 after I pull stuff out. Okay, so that's what I mean by whatever root 3. So A, right off the bat, worked out nicely. The other ones won't, so we're going to go with A. Which expression is a factor of x squared minus 2x minus 24? Well, let's factor that out. We need to come up with two numbers that add up to -2 and multiply out to 24. So off the top of my head, numbers that multiply out to 24 are 12 and 2. That won't work. How about 6 and 4? That should work. So if I do 6 and 4, one's got to be positive, one's got to be negative. Okay, because if you're going to do 6 and 4, one's positive, one's negative, that's going to multiply out to negative 24, and in a specific order will add up to negative 2. If you make the 6 negative and the 4 positive, 4 and negative 6 add up to negative 2. 4 times negative 6 multiply out to negative 24, all is well. So these are my factors. My factors are x plus 4 and x minus 6. So which expression is a factor of that guy? Well, x minus 6. So the answer in this case is going to be C. Which expression is equivalent to 2x squared minus 98 all over x squared minus 14x plus 49? So we're going to have to do a little bit of factoring, and it's not going to be that pleasant. In the numerator, I can factor, so let's do this. Let's just focus on the fact that we're going to have fractions everywhere. Let's focus on the numerator first. Right away, I can factor out a 2 because I notice that there's an even number in common. So when I factor out a 2, I'm left with x squared minus 49. Now, x squared minus 49 is a difference of squares. And a difference of squares factors out to x plus 7, x minus 7, like so. So that's the numerator. I'm done there. The denominator is a little bit friendlier, where I can think of two numbers that add up to negative 14 and multiply out to 49. That's going to be the same exact number, x minus 7 and x minus 7. Now, if you wanted to, you can write that out as x minus 7 squared, but that's not going to help my case here. Because what I want to do is I want to realize that, oh, I have an x minus 7 in the numerator and also an x minus 7 in the denominator. These guys cancel each other out. So when I do that, I'm left with 2 times x plus 7 over x minus 7, which is going to be D. An equation is shown below. 8 over 3x plus 48.5 equals y. Which equation can be used to determine the value of x when y is 28.1? So it looks like what they want us to do is not necessarily do a whole lot, but show how we would do it. So let's replace 28.1 in for y. So we have 8/3 x plus 48.5 equals 28.1. Now, if we're solving for x, the first thing that we would do is subtract 48.5 from both sides. Now, again, over here, they don't want us to actually do the work. They want us to show our steps. So you would cross that out. 8/3 x equals 28.1 minus 48.5. Now, in order to get rid of the 8/3, probably the best thing to do is, instead of dividing a fraction, multiply both sides by the reciprocal. So I'm going to multiply both sides by 3 over 8. 3 over 8. That crosses out, and x is going to equal, now it wants me to put the fraction first, which is fine, 3 over 8 times the quantity 28.1 minus 48.5. which is going to be B. So, I'm not a huge fan of this problem because it's like, don't do math. But the problem is like, how would you do it? And that's how you would do it. One of these steps Nisha used to correctly solve an equation is shown below. So you have line 1, which is 18 plus 8x minus 4 equals 13, and all of a sudden she gets 8x plus 18 minus 4 equals 3. So really all she did was like, oh, I'm going to have to combine like terms. Why don't I move things around? Okay, so she moved things around, she moved things around, she moved things around. Nisha changed the order of 18x and 8x, correct. This procedure is justified by the associative property of addition, incorrect. The associative property is when you have parentheses and you have something like a plus b plus c, and you just kind of move the parentheses around because you're allowed. That's not what she did. There's no parentheses here, so associative property is not correct. Nisha changed the order of 18 and 8x. True again. This procedure is justified by the commutative property of addition. That is correct. The commutative property of addition says if I have something like a plus b, I can make it b plus a, and all is well. So B is going to be the correct answer for this one. Okay? And that's how you do that. She didn't do any math, she just moved stuff around, so you don't have to worry about C or D. B is going to be my guy here. Stacy is solving the system of equations shown below. You got 3w plus 7t equals 64. You got 6w plus 2t equals 44. Stacy correctly uses elimination to solve the system of equations. Great. Her first step is to rewrite one equation so that one of the variables can be eliminated. Which system of equations could show Stacy's rewritten systems of equations? So when I look at this, what I would probably do is I would probably multiply this top, like I'm looking at the w's, because if all I did was multiply the top equation by -2, then I have -6w on the top and regular 6w on the bottom. I don't want to mess with the t's. Don't want to mess with the t's because you would have to do two different things. So if you were to multiply the top equation by 2, you get -6w minus 14t equals -128. The bottom equation stays exactly the same. Now this is not asking you to do it, this is just asking you how would you set this up. And so this is how I would set this up, and that seems to match up perfectly with the first option right there, which is A. So I'm going with that. Marcy bought some packages of large paintbrushes and small paintbrushes. Each package of large paintbrushes contained 3 large paintbrushes. Each package of small paintbrushes contained 6 small paintbrushes. She bought a total of 13 packages of paintbrushes, and she bought a total of 57 paintbrushes. The system of equations shown below can be used to represent the situation. So X is going to be what looks like large paintbrushes because you have the 3 matched up on the other one. Y is going to be small paintbrushes, so let's write that out. So based off of what we have the total amount of packages. So large plus small is 13 packages. Great. The large paintbrushes come in packs of 3. That's why I'm saying that the large is going to be X and the small is going to be Y, because 3 is attached to the X and the 6 is attached to the Y. And you get 57 paintbrushes when all is said and done. The solution to the system of equations is 7, 6. Very good. Based on the solution, which statement is most likely true? Well, if that's the case, then if 7, 6 is an option, then you bought 7 packages of large paintbrushes and you bought 6 packages of small paintbrushes. Packages, not large and small, packages. Because if you were to say, oh, I only bought 7 large paintbrushes and 6 small paintbrushes, that's 13 paintbrushes when you wanted 57 paintbrushes. So Marcy bought, so that eliminates A and B because that's just talking about the paintbrushes alone and not the packages. And it wants the number 6, so she bought exactly 6 packages of small paintbrushes. So the answer is going to be C. So this wasn't even a, hey, let's do the math and find out what it is. This is a, hey, here's the answer and you tell me what it is. Pretty easy. The graph shown below represents the solution set of an inequality. So you have something that starts at 97, includes 97, and goes to the right. Which inequality has the solution set represented in the graph? All right, before we do this, we have 4 options. And in all of the options, I notice that every variable is -2x, -2x, which tells me before I do a lot, what's going to eventually happen is I'm going to eventually divide both sides by a negative. And when you divide by a negative, you flip the sign, right? So my graph in the end is a greater than or equal to in the end. So if I'm going to get to that greater than or equal to, and I'm going to at some point divide by -2, that means beforehand it's got to start out as less than or equal to. So I need one of these guys. I need one of the ones that start out with less than or equal to, because eventually I'm going to flip the sign to greater than or equal to. So let's test out B and see what happens. I have -2x plus 4 is less than or equal to -198. Let's subtract 4 from both sides. -4, cross you out. negative 2x is less than or equal to negative 202. Divide both sides by negative 2, which means, yep, flip the sign, and x is greater than or equal to positive 101, which is not what I want. I want greater than or equal to 97. So let's just make sure D works. Okay, make sure I didn't make a little mistake. So let's test D out here. Negative 2x minus 4 is less than or equal to negative 198. Add 4 to both sides, cross you out, and that's negative 2x is less than or equal to negative 194. Divide both sides by negative 2, flip the sign, and x is greater than or equal to positive 97, which is the one that I want. So the answer is going to be D, baby. Keisha began a new job and decided to save some money. The linear inequality graph below models the amount of money she plans to save based on her total earnings. So she has this picture right here, and she plans on saving this shaded region amount of money. Which statement best describes what the point 65.5 represents? Well, 65.5 means that your 65 is going to be the number on the x-axis, and 5 is going to be the number on the y-axis. The x-axis, okay, is going to be total earnings. So for x, this means total earnings of $65. And if y is the amount saved, my y-axis, the amount saved is going to be, wow, $5. So when Keisha earns a total of $65, the amount she saves could be exactly $5. We're going to go with that one. Wow, $5, nice. The graph below represents the solution set for a system of inequalities. So you have yourself a nice dashed line here, you have yourself a nice solid line here, and everything in between. So let's figure out what this dashed line is. Okay, that dashed line has me shading everything below it, which means it's going to be a less than. Not less than or equal to, less than because it's dashed and everything below. So y is going to be less than something. My y-intercept is 2, so it's going to be plus 2, and my slope is up 1 over 1, 2, 3, 4. So it's going to be 1/4 x plus 2. That's going to be that dashed line there. That solid line is going to be a solid, and it looks like I'm shading above it. So I'm going to write out y is greater than or equal to, because it's solid and I'm shading above. It goes through -4, so my y-intercept is -4, and my slope is going to be negative, down 1 over 1, 2, so -1/2 x minus 4. Now, they want decimals because they're making my life worse. So let's convert these into decimals quick. Y is less than 1/4 is a quarter, so 0.25 x plus 2. And they want y is greater than -0.5 x minus 4. And that looks like that matches up nicely with C. All right, just double checking, and yeah, we're good. It's going to be C. It's going to be C. It's going to be C. All right, we've hit our open-ended problem. Simplify the expression x squared minus 3x minus 28 all over x minus 7. Write the expression in its simplest form as a polynomial expression. So what I'm going to want to do is factor that guy up there. I need two numbers that add up to -3 and multiply out to 28, and I'm going to write it out like this. If they're going to multiply out to a negative, one of them is going to be positive and one of them is going to be negative. So thinking of numbers that subtract out to 3, 7 and 3 would have me multiply out to 28 and subtract out to a 3. Now, which one gets the negative, the 7 or the 3? Well, since this is -3, the larger number is going to get the 7. So you have x plus 3, x minus 7, all over x minus 7. Now, the entire denominator is a group. So since I have this times that over that, and these two that's are the same, I can cross those things out, leaving me with x plus 3. And that's going to be my expression. So part A is me factoring that out, crossing out something over itself, and being left with x plus 3. Let's take a look at part B. What is the least common multiple of 6x squared y cubed and 10x cubed y? Well, let's figure out all the multiples that give me 6 and 10. And I kind of have it in my head, but let's do this one step at a time. So let's do 6 could be 6, 12, 18, what else? 24, 30, 36. Let's take a break. Okay, all the common multiples of x squared could be x squared, x to the 4th, x to the 6th, x to the 8th, x to the 10th, and y cubed could be y cubed, y to the 6th, y to the 9th, y to the 12th, and we'll take a break after that. Let's focus now on the 10. The 10 could be 10, 20, 30, 40, so I hit my number, I see it already. X to the 3rd could be x to the 3rd, x to the 6th, x to the 9th, x to the 12th. And y could be y, y squared, y to the 3rd, y to the 4th, blah, 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 blah. So let's look at the numbers. 30, 30, match up. X squared, nope. X to the 4th, nope. X to the 6th, yup. That's my least common multiple. So y to the 3rd, y to the 3rd, yup, y to the 3rd. Tricky stuff. Least common multiple. List out all of your multiples and then circle the smallest of them all, because that's what least common multiple means. Now we're at greatest common factor. So what you're doing with greatest common factor is similar, but you're writing all the numbers that could possibly multiply out to 12 and 2. So 12 could be 1, 2, 3, 4, 6, and 12. X cubed could be x, x squared, x to the 3rd, and y to the 5th could be y, y squared, y cubed, y to the 4th, and y to the 5th. Okay? Let's do the same thing with 2. 2 can just be 1 and 2. X squared is just going to be x and x squared, and y to the 7th is just going to be y, y squared, y to the 3rd, y to the 4th, y to the 5th, y to the 6th, y to the 7th. Now we're going to circle the greatest of these. So over here it's simple, it's just 2. Okay, so not that pretty. The greatest x value in common is going to be x squared, and the greatest y value in common is going to be y to the 5th. Now, this is where things get a little wacky. It says that the expression x squared minus bx minus c all over b, or x plus b, simplifies to x minus 6. What that means is x squared minus bx minus c over x plus b equals x minus 6. Now, this is a really crazy problem, and this is how I'm going to handle it. I'm going to multiply both sides by x plus b. All right? I'm going to multiply both sides by x plus b, and what that does is that allows us to get rid of u, leaving me with x squared minus bx minus c. That's going to equal a FOIL problem, so let's FOIL it out. Okay, we have x times x is x squared. We have x times x, or b, which is going to be bx. We have negative 6 times x, which is negative 6x. And we have negative 6 times b, which is negative 6b. Right? So what happens is we really can't combine a whole lot except for the fact that these guys will cross out. Now my job is to find b, so what I want to do is get all the b's to one side of the equal sign. Actually, let's do this instead. Let's just match things up, okay? Because you guys are supposed to be the same as you guys. So let's just set negative bx equal to bx minus 6x and solve for b that way. Now they all have x's in common, which means we can get rid of the x's. So negative b equals b minus 6. Subtract b, subtract b. Let's put it up here. That gets you negative 2b equals negative 6. Divide by negative 2, divide by negative 2, and b is going to equal 3. That was a very, 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 very difficult problem. I didn't like it. Not at all. Andrea and Carter are going on a picnic. How nice. To prepare for the picnic, Andrea buys 4 bags of granola and 3 bags of dried fruit and spends $51.50. Carter buys 2 bags of granola and 4 bags of dried fruit and spends $45.50. Write and solve a system of equations to determine the cost of a bag of granola and the cost of a bag of dried fruit. So, let's call granola, let's call that x, and let's call dried fruit y. Okay, let's do that. So 4 bags of x, this is for Andrea, 4 bags of x and 3 bags of y are going to be $51.50. Okay, Carter buys 2 bags of granola, so 2x plus 4 dried fruits, 4y, is going to be $45.50. Now, the way I'm going to handle this one is going to be elimination. I'm going to multiply the bottom row by negative 2, and that allows the x's to line up and cross out. Okay, so the bottom row is now going to be negative 4x, because negative 2 times 2 is negative 4, minus 8y, because negative 2 times 4 is negative 8, and negative 2 times 45.50 is going to be negative 91. The top row stays the same, 4x, 3y, 51.50. Add the rows. You cross out. You become negative 5y, and negative 91 plus 51.50 is going to be negative 39.5. So now we're going to divide both sides by negative 5. Divide both sides by negative 5, like so. And let's put it up here. Y will equal 7.9. Okay, so again, that's the cost. So if you're looking at that saying, whoa, a decimal, yeah, that's the cost of the bag of dried fruit. So we're allowed to have a decimal there. That's okay. Let's take that y and plug it into one of the top 2 equations. So why don't I take the top one, because that's the least of the sloppy ones. 4x plus 3 times 7.9 is going to equal 51.50. 3 times 7.9 is going to be, what is that, 23.7? Looks about right to me. Equals 51.50. Let's subtract 23.7, subtract 23.7, and 4x is going to equal 27.8. Divide both sides by 4, and x is going to equal 6.95. So what that means is granola is going to cost $6.95 per bag, and the dried fruit is going to cost, what was that, 7.9, so $7.90 per bag. Ugh. Gross, 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 gross. You're allowed to use a calculator for this. I didn't because, I didn't. I actually was using Siri, so you're not allowed to do that, though. Anyways, part B. Andrea and Carter will both hike to the picnic area from the park entrance. Carter starts at the park entrance and begins hiking to the picnic area at a constant rate. Andrea starts at the park entrance sometime later than Carter and begins hiking towards the picnic area at a different constant rate. The picnic area is 3 miles from the park entrance. The graph below represents this situation. So you have Carter is going to be this line, the blue line. You have Andrea is going to be this line, the red line. She seems to start 20 minutes after Carter, and then at 41.5 they seem to cross paths. Explain why the graph of Andrea's line starts at 20:0. Well, because Andrea started 20 minutes after Carter. It's simple as that. I mean, that's what that means right there. She started at some time later then and walked faster, so was able to catch up at one point. So nothing to lose sleep over, very basic problem. Explain what the solution to the system of equations in Part B represents in the context of this problem. The solution was 41.5. So let me write the answer out here, what the solution means while I have everything in front of me. C, the solution means is 40 minutes after Carter started, because it's the time since Carter started. So 40 minutes after Carter started, they intersected, or they met, however you want to word it, they intersected after 1.5 miles hiked. Miles, that's an M, so I'm not going to mispronounce or misspell hiked using the M. So hiked. So that's what C means. That's what the solution means. 40 minutes, 1.5, 40 minutes, 1.5 miles. There you have it. Okay, so that is the end of this section of the Keystones. Hopefully it helps. Like and subscribe. Watch them all. Thanks for watching. Love you.